Hey, you're listening to the James Altucher Show on YouTube. You're going to hear directly from peak performers who have defeated all odds and decided the only way to be truly successful in a world totally out of balance is to choose yourself. I upload a new video every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. So, subscribe to my channel and click on the bell notification now so you don't miss a thing. All right, so first, I've got Henry Winkler on the podcast. I have to tell you, this is like a bucket list moment for me.
Thank you.
We're not going to talk too much about Happy Days. I want to focus on your more recent work with Barry, which I find to be the most incredible show out there right now. Just
Thank
won
you.
13 Emmys. Congratulations. Or it got nominated for 13 Emmys.
For, and you know, I was called in congratulations from HBO. And the head of all publicity, Nancy, said to me, I want to just tell you, I've been doing this a long time. First-year comedies are not recognized. They just don't get the recognition they deserve until the second year. This is unheard of. And then for writing, for acting, for producing, for directing and cinematography, and the list goes on. I'm very proud.
So I want to actually, well, we're going to get to so many aspects of your career. And again, Happy Days, when you were on that, playing the Fonz, you were probably the most popular person on the planet. Like Paul McCartney said you were more popular than the Beatles.
Well, let me just say, I met Paul McCartney on Madison Avenue in about 65th Street. My wife and I were walking. We were walking and came at each other from opposite directions. And he went, "The Fonz." And I was speechless. I couldn't believe it. And then we started talking. A woman came out of a shop and brought us a rose each. Somebody else came up and said, "Can I just stand here and listen?" He said, "We're in the middle of a conversation." And that was that.
What did you talk about?
You know what? He gave me his phone number and told me to call him and we'll get together. And like the obsessive idiot that I was, I called him several times in a row. He never answered. I never saw him again.
He didn't pick up the Fonz's call?
He didn't pick up the call, no. He must have been pissed off that I was more popular than the Beatles.
So on Barry,
yes,
you play an acting coach.
Yes.
And Bill Hader, who plays a hitman, an assassin, stumbles into the class semi by accident. One of his targets is taking the class.
That's right.
And the series revolves around this tension he has between, you know, having this kind of soulless job of being a hitman, and I say job in quotes, and he finds purpose by hearing your words, reading your book, and taking acting lessons from you and participating in that class. He finds purpose. He finds maybe love or not. And there's that tension where it's hilarious. And it's also, we're talking about a guy who murders people for a living.
In one episode, if you haven't seen it, you can see it on HBO Go, you know, on demand. But in one episode, he kills his very best friend. In the next episode, he kills the enemy. And all of a sudden, he goes from your jaw dropping to the carpet to becoming a hero in a matter of 36 minutes.
Yeah, it's because you don't really know throughout the series how to understand who he is, because he's also trying to figure it out. But now you're starting to realize towards the end of the series, you know, what's how the characters are shaping up, even though there's drama throughout. I mean, the very first scene, the very first scene's hilarious, even though there's a dead, mangled body and he's just impassively like just doing his job, cleaning up. That somehow is very funny to me.
Right.
And it's the way they do all those.
And the weight of, God, this is boring, is amazing, right?
And then there's an interesting thing about, there's several interesting things, not just interesting, but fascinating things about the character you play. So, and by the way, I'll say this repeatedly, you've done dozens or hundreds of movies, TV, theater. You've worked with everybody in the business. Happy Days itself ran 11 seasons, but it was so interesting to see you interpret this acting coach because obviously you've been acting and you've been a
Right.
serious actor and I was watching the series with a friend of mine who was an actress and she said that's just like my acting teacher was.
Well, he is. First of all, I taught 4 classes in my life, 1 at Northwestern and 3 at Emerson College where I went, and I so enjoyed it. And then I have had about 14 or 15 different drama teachers in my life. Some of them good, and some of them should be selling shoes. And then I heard about all these acting teachers from other people. There's a guy that taught in LA where his class was forced to buy his artwork. You know, these kids who have no money, they are spending it on rent, food, and acting classes. They're at the beginning of their careers, not getting a lot of jobs, and they have to buy his art. So I took all of these people and just squashed them up, swallowed the thoughts, and out came Gene Cousineau, the teacher of thespians.
So when you read, what would you say is the difference between the character you read in the script, and I know you stuck to it word by word, and your interpretation of it, of that character? Like, was there any kind of dissonance between what the producers and writers expected and what you then portrayed?
The biggest dissidence was that because I'm so dyslexic, that I have survived by ad libbing. When I don't remember a line or can't read a line or can't read off the page. And Bill would say to me, if he said it once, he said it 100 times to me. He said, please, if you could just do it the way we wrote it so I could hear what we wrote, I would be so appreciative. I said, Bill, I'm trying. My lips and my mouth don't exactly together with my brain, but I'm going to get there.
So oh, go ahead.
Now, the other thing was I only knew this afterwards when we did press at the premiere. They had written a darker, harsher, meaner teacher. And as I was playing him, they started to write him as I was evolving. So they just changed their course watching what I was doing.
Because
They told me that. I did not know that.
that's interesting because you in the very first scenes with you,
Yes.
you kind of make Sally, that one of the main characters.
Sarah Goldberg. Is
Yes,
she amazing?
yeah, she was great, and she becomes a potential love interest for Bill, but
Yes.
she was the premier student in your class. You sort of make her really angry to get emotion out of her.
Yes, right.
Is that a class? I imagine never having taken an
A
acting
lot
class.
of teachers do that. They say we've got to break down your bad habits. We've got to rebuild you into the actor you can be. I think that a lot of it sometimes is masochistic
So is
or
that is that
sadistic.
is that a little bit? This is why I'm curious about how you interpreted it because I almost feel a scene like that is cliche in the sense that I expect an acting coach to do that kind of like
Right.
make the student angry and then say, okay, now use that anger and you're on the stage. I
Right.
feel like I've even seen that in other movies or whatever.
Yes.
So what did you do to kind of because it didn't feel cliche to me when you were doing it? What did you do to
Do you know
say
what is
make it your own?
interesting? I don't know. I don't have an answer to that question. What I do know is this. At drama school, I had a dance teacher. Her name was Carmen de Lavalade. She was the lead dancer for Alvin Ailey's group before Judith Jameson. And I said, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm playing a deer, and I had to become a deer. And she was a deer. And I said, how can I be a deer if you, this unbelievably famous mover of your body, is going to be a deer? And she said, my deer will be completely different than your deer because it's me and it's you. Just your being will force the deer to be different.
So I want to understand that
Yes.
because, and I know we'll get to Barry, we'll get to everything, but I want to understand just that one direction she gave you.
Okay.
How do you play you? How does the you come out as a deer? Like, how does your inner
Do you
truth
know
come out
what?
as a deer?
All characters, if a character is well written, you're already in it. That's why Shakespeare is still unbelievably popular this almost 500 years later. because every character he wrote, take away the language, and you've got a human being you totally know from your family. You totally know from your circle of friends. You totally know from the temple. That humanity is the reproduction, or acting is reproducing and holding up as a mirror the way we live.
So and you studied a lot of Shakespeare.
I did, and I can't do it. I mean, I know my limitations.
But you were at the Yale
I was at
School
the
of
Yale School
Drama.
of Drama, and I was in Macbeth, and I played young Seward, and that was it.
Okay,
I
because
was killed, and I had to lie on the stage as a corpse for about 2/4 of the third act.
and then I feel like after such a great dramatic experience when you were at a very young age,
Yes,
studying at Yale's, theater, many of your roles, the roles I would say the world knows you as, including and up to Barry,
right.
but let's say Arrested Development and Happy Days and your Adam Sandler roles, you're a very funny
Thank you,
comedic actor.
thank you.
And did you ever? And I know you've done great drama as well, but really you're known for a lot of these
Yes,
comedic roles.
right.
And do you ever feel like, oh, I don't want to be just
No.
playing a comic
You
role?
know what? I thought that I wanted. Listen, my one of my things on a bucket list. I want my children and my grandchildren to meet their destiny. I would like to win a Tony, and I'd like to play a mute.
Hmm.
I don't know why. That just is in my mind.
Anybody here want to write a screenplay for a mute? We've got Henry
Okay,
Winkler.
don't all speak up at once. Yeah. Well, now, but the thing is that I am blessed. I love my career. I have worked with geniuses, Gary Marshall, Adam Sandler, Mitch Hurwitz, who created
Yeah, Arrested Development.
Arrested Development. To watch him live on the set when you're saying something that is extraordinarily funny, and he goes, "You know what? This will be funnier. Say this," and off the top of his head comes this, I don't know what, this gift. And now the combo of Bill Hader and Alec Berg together make a bubble of brilliance.
I
Truly.
I really feel like
What
that's
let me just finish the point, and the point is, if it's not on the page, it's not on the stage. You can work as hard as you want. If it is not written well, if it's not written with intent or a point of view, you will eventually pull off your mooring, and you will float to the middle of the ocean.
so and this is what I sense from Gene Cousineau, the acting teacher you play,
Yes,
he does have a point of view. He
yes,
takes acting super seriously.
yes. And
His advice,
also, if you can pay in cash on time,
right, and
very important.
that's the dissonance, and that's almost
That's so much of your talent.
the relatable aspect for many people is that they have acting coaches who give good advice, but also they really need that check in
Let me
advance.
just tell you this, that this is one of the things that helped me create Gene Cousineau. In my acting theater, on the set, there are posters framed all through the walls of the set. Gene Cousineau presents,
Right.
directs, produces, and stars in, and one of them is Peter Pan. And they had me in a harness and flew me like Peter Pan. The only thing is, I did not bother to dye my hair. I am playing Peter Pan at 72. I knew Gene Cousineau right away.
Well, and it's funny because then in the middle of the season, we see you in this one scene and one scene only, but it was enough to see you auditioning for a role.
Oh,
And it was only a one-line role. The role is man in the back of the line, and you give
unbelievable.
two interpretations of it,
Right.
which is hilarious. And so we kind of then see, oh, he's like the students too.
I'm
And yet
telling you.
you do have a point of view about acting where you're giving great acting advice to these
Right.
students.
But here it is. Everybody in the show wants to be somebody they're not.
Hmm.
Bill Hader is an assassin and wants to be an actor. I'm a teacher. I want to be an actor. Sally, played by Sarah Goldberg, wants to be, the greatest, and she is completely unsatisfied by the characters that Shakespeare has written for her. She wants to be Macbeth. Everybody wants to be somebody else.
Do you think that's like you mentioned earlier that you won so many Emmys and that the people at HBO said this is so unusual for a first season sitcom.
Yes.
Do you think part of that is because in reality everybody kind of wants to be somebody else most of the time?
Well, a lot of people want to be in show business, so that's relatable. A lot of people want to be, as you just said, somebody else.
Like a
So
lot of
that
people work in cubicles and want to
yes,
be an entrepreneur, or a lot of people
right.
want to be a writer, but they're stuck being an entrepreneur or whatever.
Well, the distance, I always say that the distance between what you're doing and what it is you want is as thin as the thread that it sews on your button. It is a matter of your tenacity, your courage, your honesty about your ability, and your gratitude. And you can pretty much accomplish what's on your mind. The fear is to change your life. The fear is to step out from what you have created for your day to day.
Well, and I feel if you look through your career and your acting life, let's view it in terms of the arc of the hero where, in the middle you get obstacles along the way that are
Right,
increasingly more difficult.
right.
And I sort of see that happen in your career. One of the obstacles being between Happy Days in the early 90s.
Where I was not hired.
Yeah, and you said this was, in interviews, this is a very low moment for you. So
That's
what
right.
what was a day in the life like during those 9 years? I don't know,
Okay,
and you were
so
the most famous person in the world at the beginning of that period.
right, and so I had an office at Paramount, and then I had a producing deal with ABC, which, I don't know that they do anymore. I was really lucky. Part of my compensation was on the air. If I got a show that they liked, they would put it on the air. That was part of my deal. I'm sitting in my office at Paramount. We have just finished Happy Days. A few months have gone by. And I realize I don't have a plan B. I just lived my dream for the last 10 years. I do not have anything to replace it with. I am psychically in pain. I literally, when you are rudderless, when you don't know what it is you want, it literally hurt my head. I was sad. I would sit at my desk. I was smart enough. I didn't know what to do, so I did nothing. And eventually I produced, and then we did MacGyver and Sightings, and I directed a little bit. And then in
But
90
doing nothing, what was that?
doing nothing is not forcing the issue. If you force the issue, like it is a great metaphor, is fly fishing for trout, which I love. You are using a very thin, thin line. And if you force the fish will break the line and you will lose it. If you allow the fish to go away and then you bring it back again and you let it go away and you bring it back again, eventually you will take a picture with that fish.
So this sounds great, but it also sounds incredibly difficult to do because you don't know. And
There is
in
no,
those moments of feeling at bottom, you don't know if there's going to be an uptick. You
you
don't know
don't
if
know.
patience is going to
You
pay
don't
off.
know.
When you're
And
fly fishing, you don't know if when you're
no,
standing there, if the fish are going to eventually catch the bait.
that's right. You don't know. But here's the thing. And as a short Jew, I am completely obsessed with wanting to know whether or not I'm going to catch another fish, if I'm going to work again. But I will tell you something, and this is the honest truth. I went for a while not knowing what was going to happen to me in very recently, but I knew one thing. I knew inside me I was not done yet. I was not ready to hang up my spurs. I knew that I have more to do. Presto jingo. All of a sudden, out of the blue comes this magnificent gift of Barry.
Yeah, and also, I mean, simultaneously, Arrested Development's sort of been on and off,
Right.
so you've been involved in that, but Barry, you're like the main character along with
Well,
Bill.
yes, I'm almost like a guest star on Arrested Development. I do a few a year, and people, thank God, like my character. Mitch likes the character. I only play characters actually that have an association with the name Barry. My lawyer is Barry. The show is
Yeah,
Barry.
Barry Zuckerkorn.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Barry Zuckerkorn,
Y
who is the craziest person I've ever played.
he's hilarious, and I always like, on Arrested Development, the many inside jokes that refer to Happy Days. So,
Yes, I
there's the
and I
when you
jumped the
step over
shark.
the shark, you're jumping the shark,
Absolutely.
and
The
then
mirror.
there was an amazing scene when they fire you and hire Scott Baio to play
Right.
their new lawyer,
That's right.
and they directly address it's because we want to appeal to a younger audience,
Yes.
and so it's directly related to Chachi rising up in Happy Days.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
and I mentioned this once. Brian Grazer came on the podcast. I mentioned this once to him, and he said, "You know more of these inside jokes than I do." So,
Right. I'm the only actor in the world that has jumped the shark twice.
right, because I mean, just to mention, I find now some people don't know what that phrase is. It refers to that point in a series or anything where the series goes so off theme
It has
in
outstayed its welcome.
yeah, that maybe then the show's on its way down, and
Right.
you literally jump over a shark in the Hollywood the
Right.
cast goes out to Hollywood for some reason in
Right.
season 5, and
Ron Howard is driving the boat, and I jumped the shark on water skis.
by the way, I love that scene watching it when it happened in
Thank you.
1977,
Thank you.
so I don't think it jumped the shark at all, but then it became a common phrase in,
That's right.
popular
And but
culture.
we were still number 1 for the next 4 or 5 years anyway.
Which, by the way, meant 30 million viewers a week.
Yes, right.
So how do you feel now that media has changed so much? I mean, now it's
Well,
impossible to get
I
30
was
million viewers.
lucky because, yes, there were paparazzi, but not paparazzi that followed you home. It was not as intense as bloodthirsty as it is now. I was very lucky that I lived in a different time doing the Fonz.
But I mentioned that there were a couple obstacles you went through in your career, and we talked at first about you feeling rudderless or maybe typecast during these 9 years.
Right.
And I know Stacy, your wife, is in the audience here
Yes, she
somewhere,
is.
and I just wanted to ask: Is this how did you deal with him being maybe depressed every day when he
That's a
came
good
home?
question.
Is that really for me?
Yes, for you.
Was difficult.
Like, how did you support him through that? You guys have been married 40 years. I'm just engaged. I'm trying to figure out the secrets of a good marriage.
I always knew that he was successful. I never doubted for a second that he would work. I could have been insane, but I felt sad that he felt that in order I think he had set such a high bar for himself because he thought that, I think, we were just talking about this morning, that I think he thought unless he could literally make history again, like the Fonz, that he would not be a successful person. He felt, I think, that he wanted to create another character, do another role that would
Or any role.
as any role, but that would be perfection, you know. And I really think that he has found this in Barry because I think he's the best he's ever been. He's the most relaxed. I see no self consciousness.
Did you see self-consciousness in his early roles?
Sometimes, yes, I did.
What were you self-conscious about?
Pushed.
Discomfort in his skin. I think that's what I.
Well, because I was uncomfortable in my own skin, I was uncomfortable as an actor. It was like a conundrum because as an actor, I was able to take risks that I didn't know I could take in real life. But yet at the same time, as an actor, I was pushy. I would love to have some of those roles back now and to do them again and do them. It took me, as I started saying, when I was 27, I knew who I wanted to be as an actor. And now at 72, I'm getting closer.
That's so funny. I keep thinking, it's amazing to be at 72 and you have so many things going on. There's, of course, Barry. You have, 30 children's novels, over 30 children's novels you've written about a dyslexic child,
Right.
which brings me to another obstacle of yours. You didn't read your first book until age 31. You didn't
That
even
is
know you
true.
had dyslexia until age 31.
That's true.
How the hell did you memorize lines before then?
You know what? I could read it very slowly. And as I read it, if I was focused, it would go in, especially if it's written well. Something that is written well goes in like you're drinking water. If a script is not written
Because then you
well,
could feel it.
yeah, or you understand it on just on the human terms of it. If it's not written well, if it's just a bunch of words that string together into a sentence and some pretentious person is writing a script, you could try and memorize that from now until doomsday. And it just doesn't make sense. It's not going in. It's impossible.
Well, you said in one interview, and this connects to advice that Gene gives in Barry. You said that when you auditioned for the Fonz
Yes.
in Happy Days in,
Yeah.
I guess, 1972,
Right.
you had to be basically the Fonz was everything you weren't but wanted to be.
That's right.
So I'm always trying to figure out
But
because
let me tell you, I was able only to do that when I changed my voice. When I changed my voice, it was like something, I turned a knob inside my body and I just became a different persona, you know? All of a sudden I could talk to anybody that was in the room. Hey, listen, don't you touch me, you know? And then I threw the script up in the air and I sauntered out of the room. And they called me on my birthday. That was 2 weeks into arriving in California. And they said, would you like to play this character? I said, if you let me show the emotional side, it will be my pleasure. They said, okay. I said, okay. And my life changed.
yeah, because in the first season or two, you were sort of more this tough guy, almost I couldn't figure it out whether you were bullying or but then suddenly there's this real emotional side to you and the whole show changed as a result. Like
Right.
you became essentially the main character of the show.
Well, one of the emotional sides was because we would do shows according to letters the producers got. One of them was from a home for wayward boys in Massachusetts. They said, look, the guys here love the Fonz, they love Happy Days, but they won't show any emotion. Could you write an episode where the Fonz says it's okay to be emotional? And that was the time that I cried over Richie, who was in the hospital, and I made a deal with God to make Richie get better.
That's funny because also there's so many times when the Fonz is emotional where you can't actually express an emotion. Like you say,
Right.
lose. You
Yeah.
can't say love.
I can't say love. I can't say wrong.
Or
Remember,
lose.
hey, you're I was, and it's such an easy word, right? I'm.
But at this point, you didn't even know you had dyslexia. Like all through your childhood, you were getting poor grades.
That's right.
I can't imagine what you must have gone through just reading every
And
script.
right up the street from where we are, I went to PS 87, where the little boy that I write about in Hank Zipser goes to school. PS 87,
Yeah.
right up the street. This is my neighborhood.
No, I know. Is this a homecoming for you? Coming to
I am in shock. I am in shock that I am sitting here, that it has come full circle, that this has been here when I was a young fellow, and now I'm here being interviewed by you.
so again, when you had this dyslexia, which obviously was a huge obstacle.
Right.
And then you also go through this rudderless time.
That's
And I
right.
and I just I want to play Henry to you for a second. Just to let's say he comes home and he says, God damn it, honey. They're still sending me that Grease script. They keep just thinking of me as a guy wearing a leather jacket. I don't want it. How would you react to that?
Well, I'm sure I could have reacted better in hindsight, but it was hard for me to understand because it was very successful. I didn't believe, I couldn't process that he did not feel like a success. That it just was, I, Henry used to say it was just too black and white. So I would say in those days, look in the encyclopedia. You're in the encyclopedia. You made history. Your jacket is in the Smithsonian Institute. We can't, on our first date, we were in the car and Henry was waving at random people. And I was born and raised in Los Angeles and had been around people in the entertainment business all my life. But this was foreign. And I would say, who are you waving at? And Henry would say, how would I know? And this was not normal behavior for me. So it looked to me like he was extraordinary and extraordinarily successful. So it was hard for me to understand what was going on inside of him.
And how do you think the marriage survived those 9 years?
Well, everything gets carmen, everything gets in its own place, and what I was professionally didn't translate to who I was on the earth. That was a completely different compartment. And then our marriage, we had wonderful children, and I did not feel terrific. I was always trying to crawl out of a stainless steel cylinder with no handholds, no footholds. And I would try to get to the sun and I would constantly slip back.
At what moment do you think that period in your life was over?
About last Wednesday.
Okay, I'll believe that.
Yeah.
But if you don't tell me otherwise,
I am now a different human being. I have a different view of life, of living on the planet, of the fragility of living on the planet, of relaxing into living on the planet. Uh, and I have to say that I am a devotee of the sentence, youth is wasted on the young.
hmm. Well, obviously you're living a very youthful life. Like you're more active than anybody I know. So
I have a
so
good time.
one of the pieces of advice you give early on in the series, which I thought was great advice, and forgive me if I misquote it,
That's
but
okay.
you say in acting, take the choice you're afraid of.
Right.
What's the exact phrase? I can't remember. It was something
You
like
make a choice that will put you in jeopardy, and because you have chosen to just step over the line, to step over your comfort level, it forces you to see how resilient you are, how imaginative you are, how powerful you are, in that you can handle what you thought you couldn't.
so. Like, what's an example in your life where you did take the choice you were afraid of?
I became a producer. I don't like producing. I don't understand business acumen. And then all of a sudden, I realized that, okay, I'm doing this thing. Not only do I not like it, but I don't know how to do it. And I'll just do the parts of it I do know. There is always somebody to help you with what you don't know. Somebody did the business, somebody did the technical, I did the scripts, the casting, the talking to the actors, the making sure there was harmony. And all of a sudden, these shows came and stayed for 7 years.
Like MacGyver, for instance?
MacGyver, which is now going to premiere again in for the third year in September.
And so when you were auditioning for the acting teacher, Gene Cousineau on
Yes,
Barry, uh, how in your audition, do you think when you're auditioning, how am I going to make a choice that I'm afraid of, that puts me out of my comfort zone?
I did not, because the whole process put me out of my comfort zone.
Mm.
I was on a razor edge. I had I could not think about how am I going to be good. I could only think about just be here now, and whatever happens, happens. Throw my fate to the wind. And it just turned out that Sherry Thomas, who is the casting person, reading with me, was so supportive. I could feel it. And I don't remember if I said this or not, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw Bill Hader laugh. I
Mm.
made Bill Hader, who Stacy and I watched on Saturday Night Live, who we laughed at Bill Hader for years and years and years. I made him laugh.
Mm.
And all it was just going not with my head, but with my instinct.
And so I wanna know what that means, though. Like, so you're in what was the difference between what your head was telling you and what your instincts were telling you?
Okay. Your head is demanding perfection. Your head is worrying about, am I good? Am I not? Am I funny? Am I not? Your head, it's almost as if your head is trying to distract you from the job at the moment, from the situation at hand. Your instinct is you are going with whatever is coming into your mind. I did a play after I graduated from Yale Drama School. I went to Cincinnati Playhouse in the Park, and I was in a show called a play called Incident at Vichy by Arthur Miller. And the director said to me after we opened, he said, "I had no idea what you were doing in rehearsal. I just couldn't replace you. I didn't have time, and I had no idea this character was going to emerge." You do what comes into your mind.
How do you think, and I mean, I think this kind of head versus instinct is important in so many areas
And
of
I'll tell
life.
you what, if you're engaged and you become a parent, as a parent, your instinct will know everything that is right about taking care of that child. Your head will only know a fraction.
But how do you, in a professional scenario like you were in, like you just described, how do you know to kind of, was that an instinct on your part to be able to go into the instinct side of you?
I was able, since the beginning of my working career, to beat my head into submission and allow my instinct, my imagination about what I see on the paper, the way it sounds to me inside, what other people in the script are saying about me, what the director is saying, what the writer is saying, and put that all together and just let it fly. Jump off the precipice and fly.
Do you see what the character looks like?
I don't.
No.
I see him, or whoever I'm playing, I see him in details. And the beach is made up of one grain of sand, and then all the other grains are there. I start with a detail, and then all of a sudden, one detail attaches to another. And pretty soon, I've got a living organism that turns out to be Gene Cousineau. I don't always know how I got there. I told the boys, I told Alec Berg and Bill Hader a story. I told them about being in class with the late great
Stella Adler.
Stellar Adler. The first exercise at drama school was to make a garden in your mind and walk through it so that the class can see what you see. It was my turn. Winkler. And I got up and I opened the picket fence and I started to walk through it. And I said, and here, she said, sit down. You see nothing. I said, what are you talking about? I didn't even tell you about my variegated tulips. And the forget-me-nots, you want one? Sit down.
So what do you think she saw?
I don't know what she saw, but I did not allow that to cripple me. I did not allow her to tell me I didn't see the entire garden that I had.
That's so funny because I do actually have a daughter from a prior marriage.
How
and
old?
she's 19 and she's in Stellar Adler's summer program right now.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so she wants to be
An actress.
an actress.
Wow.
But one thing you say, I'll close with this. Well, and then I'll also mention one more time, Barry. But one thing you say is that in another interview, acting is a combination of concentration, relaxation, and listening.
Yes.
And
Life is listening. For me, the center of all relationships is the ear. I have learned that I knew this intellectually, and I am learning this now on a more visceral level. It does not matter what you meant. It only matters how it lands on the other person. And then you must be open to that. And then you work that miscommunication out.
what's the concentration
The
part?
concentration is be in the moment and do not worry about being right.
Hmm.
And relaxation. I was so worried as a young actor. I literally had 2 costumes for every character. I would sweat through one and I would have to change as soon as I got off stage into the other because I was soaking wet. As soon as I relaxed and allowed myself to just be in the situation, I never sweat again. Now, I perspired, but I did not sweat.
How did you relax? How did you learn to relax?
Will. I wanted to, and it took me 5 years. I did a television movie with Sissy Spacek, and I just kind of relaxed in a scene. I wasn't tense trying to be perfect. I was just being there, listening, reacting.
Hmm.
And I went, oh, that's what they meant.
So Henry Winkler, once again, several things. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
What a pleasure to be here.
Barry is a total incredible breakout show for me. Like I've been constantly looking for like what new sitcom can I start watching? This is the show, and
Thank
you
you.
prove it by just getting nominated for 13 Emmys. You and Bill Hader do such a great job. You of
Thank
course
you.
play an incredible acting coach, but also got that vulnerability that's so interesting. And then just the arc of your career. You've worked with so many amazing heroes of mine, in addition to yourself being a hero of mine, but everybody on the cast of Arrested Development. Ron Howard was your co-star in Happy Days. Robin Williams, his first appearance on
Oh
Happy
my
Days.
gosh. Yeah.
When just one final, when Robin Williams was on Happy Days, was everybody like, "What the hell is this guy doing?"
I'll tell you what happened. They couldn't find anybody to play Mork for Mork. It was Gary Marshall's youngest son who gave Gary the suggestion of having an alien come to Milwaukee. Wednesday, Robin Williams shows up. We shoot Friday. My entire job that week was not to break up and to get out of the way because I knew I was in the presence of greatness.
Wow.
Truly. That's not even hyperbole. That is my jaw dropped when I watched this young man take every single thing that happened to him and suck it in like a vacuum cleaner, and it came out Robin.
Well, again, thanks for coming on the podcast.
What a pleasure to chat with
Thanks
you.
for being the Fonz. Thanks for being helping do Barry, which is a great show. I encourage everyone to watch it. It's like my current favorite show. And
You can see it on
Thank you.
HBO Go.
HBO Go
Yeah.
or Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
There's all these places to see it. I watched it on both at different times. So
Thank you.
great show. And
Thank
I
you.
love HBO. I used to work there. Just
Oh,
wanna mention that.
yay.
Yeah.
All right. It's a
Thanks.
pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks.
Hey, thank you for listening to the James Altucher Show on YouTube today. I have a really special brand new episode coming out next week, but you can watch it early. Just click on the link right here or subscribe to the channel when you click on my face. And one more thing, don't forget to click the bell. I'll see you next time.